But I'm not sure, it's still debatable as to whether it would have been a good thing for all of the diaspora who went abroad to better themselves and to have the accomplishment and obtain knowledge, whether it was a good thing for this country or not. I don't know if the country could have absorbed us, or if we had stayed here, would it be better for the country or better for ourselves? It's still debatable. But nevertheless, we are where we are today. So, the diasporas, the community went abroad, developed themselves, obtained a vast amount of knowledge, wealth, etc. Like I said, that yearning to come back to where we belong, where our navel string was buried. And then, we come back and want to help. Again, we've always been part of helping the economy, keeping the economy afloat, working 2-3 jobs. So we've always been part. And now, especially now that we want to come back, a lot of folks are retired and they want to come back to help develop the country. So here's where these challenges come in. And there are two sides of the challenge, of course. From the diaspora side, you feel that you're being rejected. You want to offer all of this knowledge and bring back all of this wealth, retirement money, etc., to spend and create jobs, etc., be entrepreneurs. But you're being rejected. You're being stiff-armed. And on the other side, the folks who live here feel that you come back with an air of arrogance and talking down to the folks and telling them how stupid they are. So here's this big divide, and as a matter of fact, they even say that you cut and run. When things were bad, you just left the country, and of course, we feel that when you left the country, you really didn't cut and run because you helped keep everybody afloat here. So those are the two sides, and that's what presents this challenge. How do we get an understanding or start a discussion? How do we turn this so-called brain drain essentially into a brain gain? So, this is, just to set the stage for the panel to start the discussion. So I think we're going to start with on the line to Ewart as our first presenter.
How much time?
Well, I'm going to, it seems as if we're probably going to do like 5 minutes per person and to give us enough time for questions.
Good morning. Well, actually, yes, it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ewart Marshall. And as you can probably detect from my accent, I've lived in the United States for quite a while. It's funny, when I'm in the States with my wife and kids, they hear a strong, strong accent. And when I'm here, everyone hears a Yankee accent. So I'm caught in the middle. But, I'm fine with that. It's because I've benefited from, America and Guyana immensely. Also a little bit of Barbados. You might hear some Bajan too. My wife's family is Bajan. I've spent a lot of time there. Mr. Chairman, organizing committee, I don't see Dr. Ivalo, but when he returns, I'll acknowledge him. Like all of you in this room, I'm filled with optimism for Guyana's future. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here today. I'm an optimistic person by nature, and I see the glass is half full almost all the time. In October of 2015, I was given the designation, and I wish Professor Tennessee was still in the room. He mentioned the ministerial advisors. I was one of the 4 original ministerial advisors on diaspora affairs, appointed by the Prime Minister and a few other ministers and all of that. Well, the 4 of us were supposed to put together, some sort of plan or something, based on the areas of our expertise and interest. And as it turned out, there was a clamor, not very public, by a great number of people who felt quite jealous of those 4 original appointments. And so they appointed 28 more. 20 more. Now, I know many of the additional 28 others that were appointed, and I can tell you, once they got that appointment, they felt like kings. They disappeared, So I don't want to criticize them too much. But again, if Professor Tennessee was here, I would suggest to him that, the intent of the appointment was a noble one, was a positive one, even if it turned into stupidness, Sorry. My perspective on all of this conference is from the point of view as an entrepreneur. You know, I work for myself. I've worked for myself since the mid '90s, and I tend to see things in terms of starting a business, providing jobs, and the like. I'm very interested in Guyana and its progress from the point of view that I've always felt, and I might be thrown out of the room for saying this, that Guyana's biggest problem, since even prior to independence, was not a race problem, but a poverty problem and a class problem, right? People fighting for small pie, and of course, when the politicians can't answer the questions of why you're poor, they tell you it's because you're black, you're Indian, you're this, you're that. It's a distraction that's used all over the world. But that's my opinion, and many of you may disagree. You know, when you talk race, people can deal with you, but as soon as you start trying to answer questions on poverty, then they kill you, you disappear, and all of this and that. Think of history, you know? Let's march, but don't tell me you want me to give you more money. That makes you really dangerous. And so, having said that, I would like to approach all of this, so these deliberations, from the point of view of providing jobs, economic power to people. I don't know of anywhere in the world where poor people are in power. If someone knows, tell me. You cannot be poor and empowered. So to me, okay, I have 2 minutes. Thank you very much. It's a great help. So I would like to, talk about, and I hope this panel addresses these things, but from the point of view of an entrepreneur in business, how do we deal with the business culture and etiquette, things like banking, legal, finding skilled persons, and also, trust between people in the diaspora and people at home, because the first people that are going to come in here and start businesses and helping to deal with the influx of wealth are the diaspora. And if the diaspora is not accommodated first and foremost, then what does that say to everybody else who comes in here? We who are from Guyana have to find a way to work with the people living here, the Guyanese here, in a way that takes the whole country forward, takes us all forward. Maybe in time the word diaspora will disappear and we won't know the difference. It'll just be Guyanese. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ewart. Next is going to be Tanisha, or is it Tanisha? Takesha, sorry. It was interesting. I met Takesha last night for the first time, and we all tend to forget, when you look around diaspora means the baby boomers, we that left, and we tend to focus on ourselves, and then suddenly she hit me, she said, so it was going to be a presentation, but she said it's going to be about the youth. How do we, about sustainability, and then it hit home that you cannot, even if we start this whole diaspora engagement now among ourselves, which is where we focus, and that's all we think about, because that's what caused it. So it's a very, very interesting and excellent perspective as to how do we engage the youth to make this whole diaspora engagement with the community sustainable. So, next to that.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Takesha Wilson, and as you can tell, I am not a Guyanese. I have been offered the opportunity to be an honorary Guyanese. So I just want to say I am grateful to be here. I'm thankful. And why am I here? And I'm here because the purpose that I have in life collides with the destiny and the needs of the diaspora. And that is what's working with youth and working with at-risk youth and addressing the issues that they have. And so my paper that I wrote, and I know I have to shorten my presentation, it's titled Youth and the Challenges of Sustainable Employment. But also in regards to youth and the challenges as far as the diaspora. One of the things that I've noticed here since I've been in Guyana and at this conference is we haven't seen many young people here. You know, we haven't seen young people represent, and as this gentleman said, they are our future, so they need to be here, because when you all are gone, who's going to carry on the vision of the diaspora? So youth and the challenges of sustainable employment, not just a global issue, but a diaspora issue, and that's what I'll be addressing this morning. So I'm just going to read a little bit about what I wrote in my summary, and then I'll move on. So in the wake of new concerns regarding global economic growth and youth unemployment is on the rise after several years of improvement, according to the international labor market. 71 million youth are unemployed worldwide, and there are 156 million young workers who live in poverty. Youth employment remains a global challenge, so this is all over, and a top policy concern for the international labor market. So the things that look like, for instance, I was in the last session with Mr. Paul Tennessee, and he said that the things that he sees in Washington, D.C., he sees here. And the same information as I was doing the research on youth and unemployment and the different aspects that impact our youth, especially our at-risk youth, I've seen it at home, and according to the research that I've done in regards to Guyana, there are the similar issues. Now, granted, I'm not here every day on the groundwork, whatever, but research has shown that they are very alike. The 156 million of youth workers that live in poverty are from emerging and or developing countries. They either live in extreme poverty or on less than US $1.90 per capita per day, or moderate poverty on between US $1.90 and $1.90 and $3.10 per capita per day, despite being employed. Furthermore, in countries that are developed and have access to informational resources, youth are more at risk of living in poverty still, which is defined as living on less than 60% of median income despite having a job. And so the thing is that back at home, even though that you may have the education, you may have the degree, it's still very difficult. I was having a conversation with a gentleman, we were in the airport at Trinidad, and he is a Guyanese, and he was on his way to Guyana. And the thing is that even from at home and the discussions with him, is that when my parents, when they finished high school, they was able to go and have a house and get a decent job. Now you have to have education, you have to have some type of training. You cannot just go work and live off of that income. And so that's what I'm seeing that's happening, impacted in the generation today. And according just to that one discussion, I know that's not enough information, but that's what he said that was going on with what he has noticed as well. Additionally, in developed countries, research has proven that a shift has taken place regarding the age distribution of poverty between youth and senior citizens. According to international labor market, there's a growing evidence over the past couple of decades of shift in the age of distribution of poverty, with youth taking the place of the elderly as the group at greatest risk of living in poverty. So for instance, again, among the research that I found out is that before, you know, you were considered to be doing better, wherever you were from, that you're going to do better than the former generation. Well, according to the information that I have found, that's not true. That the next generation is not going to live better than their previous generation. So that's a major concern. Okay, so I'm going to skip over to my next part because I have 2 minutes. So youth and unemployment in Guyana. According to an article posted in the Guyana Times on August 13, 2016, Guyana's youth unemployment rate is among the highest in all of the Caribbean. The article specifically stated the Caribbean Development Bank in 2015 reported that Guyana's youth unemployment rate is among the highest in the Caribbean at a staggering 40%. The report has also stated that youth unemployment in the Caribbean is at a very high 25%. Apart from being unemployed, most of the young people who do have work are still living in poverty. This is especially true in developing economies. In Guyana, however, now this is from the article, not from me, there seems to be no coherent plan to address the staggering 40% of youth that have been unemployed, in addition to those who are working and are unemployed. So I just want to say in regards to that information that I found, and that was just one piece, I did continue to do research, and there's a program, one program that I noticed that's actually has begun to work on addressing this issue. And it's called the Guyana Skills and Knowledge for Youth Employment Program, and it's also known as the SKY program. And one of the things that it was developed for was the primary objective to reduce violence in Guyana through strengthening of economic participation of at-risk youth. And the goals, and three of the goals are to the expansion of employment, education, and skill building opportunities for at-risk youth. Number two, the strengthening of the reintegration of youth offenders in society. And number three, the strengthening of an enabling environment for youth development. So those are the three things that I've noticed in particular to this program that it has started to begin to address the issue. But my charge is, and the question is, as far as to begin the discussion, is what is going to be the diaspora's agenda or goal to begin addressing this issue as well? Thank you.
Good morning. Well, I'm here to join my colleagues in offering a vision of diaspora involvement. And I might say that diaspora involvement has, over the years, has always been there, because those of us who have migrated to other places have always been involved at some level. Early in the process, it was the case of sending remittances to relatives and friends. That later developed into sending articles, books for educational institutions that we might have attended or have some affinity towards. In the case of hospitals, it was sending badly needed supplies and even in some cases, medications. We're entering another stage of diaspora involvement that calls for better organization, a wider scale of organization and capacity building for it to come to fruition. I was so consumed with this and moving it forward that I continued research, looking at examples of other countries that were faced with this challenge of diaspora involvement and engagement. And I noted that they had established structures to structure engagement and involvement. Zambia represents a good case study. They have done a lot to lure Zambians who have migrated all over the world, but particularly in the United Kingdom. Even older countries like India had struggled with this. And in fact, they established an entire ministry that was solely responsible for diaspora involvement and engagement. And that led me to continued research in how we can make diaspora involvement and engagement work in the case of Guyana. And that led to my authoring this book. It's called Engaging Guyana's Diaspora with the Fierce Urgency of Now. Because the more you get involved into the aspect of diaspora involvement, the more you realize how urgent it is and that there's no time to waste. In fact, we are far past the time when we should be seriously engaged and involved. So that adds a bit of urgency to the whole process. Now, when I started that, I realized that there was indeed an absence of structures and plans for that. So what the book does, it lays out what I call a blueprint for diaspora involvement. That blueprint starts with a strategic plan and profiles the users of that plan and that blueprint for involvement. The strategic plan identifies different components that work well. First, a vision. Well, you know what the Bible says about that. Without a vision, the people shall perish. So it starts by having a compelling vision that is capable of motivating others to see the outcomes or the end of this involvement and engagement. Thank you. So what comes after the vision is the mission. It's very important to articulate a mission that feeds into, that draws from that vision. Following that, you have goals and objectives, action plans that can be used, because it's so important to know where you're going, also to look back occasionally and to see where you've been and how you can improve your efforts. So that, in essence, with some other structures, comprises the blueprint. Now I named it the fund blueprint. That involves not only a strategic component, but an emotive component. Because my interest was to make the whole process of diaspora involvement not only necessary and essential to those of us living in the diaspora, but inject some amount of emotive response, some aspect of fun. People who are engaged should feel that they're doing something useful that can benefit the country as a whole and receive some intrinsic joy in doing it. And that's where the aspect of fun comes in. Now these are other components. The whole process starts with the needs assessment. And that is necessary to document and log the skills of persons in the diaspora. Because you've got to have a strong resource base and know where the expertise lies for different types of engagement and different purposes for which the engagement is directed. Now, of course, the whole aspect of funding becomes critical. So finding and identifying funding sources for the entire process is also very essential. Now, how can you do all this and be successful? And it requires the establishment of an international center for diaspora engagement. And I've spoken to persons and will renew my appeals to places like the University of Guyana, who could establish a center for activity and research to bring all these resources together and to help stimulate the effort wherever the diaspora is located, in the UK, the US, in Canada, and other countries where Guyanese are from. But if you want to delve more into it, these books are available just for the price of production. I've reduced the price especially for this particular session. They are $15 US. I don't know how that translates into kind of dollars.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. And of course, Wayne doesn't need any introduction, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. Well, we're going to talk about challenges, and as I sat in the plane and I thought about it, I couldn't come up with anything to talk about. The problem is, everything is a challenge. And where do we begin? We begin by looking at what diaspora engagement is. According to the IOM, diaspora engagement is a process. It's not a series of events that occur at different points in time. It's not a set of ad hoc policies that are implemented at different points in time. It is not a call for folks to return home and invest. That is not diaspora engagement. And as this gentleman talked about organization and structure, that's where it is. In any system, if there isn't organization, if there isn't structure, you are doomed to fail. In church, in school, even at home, there has to be structure. And what we have, I'm going to go through this quickly because there's a nexus between migration and development. And I'm going to look quickly at some of the best practices of other countries. There are over 26 countries with ministries dedicated to diaspora engagement. There are about more than 17 countries with sub-ministries dedicated to their diaspora. And I can name the countries, not time for that. There are about 12 other countries, 50-something other countries with what they call quasi or quasi offices under their ministries. So, why do you need to know that? You need to know that to find out what do we have in Guyana. You want to talk about a challenge? Our challenge is that we do not have structure, we do not have a mechanized organization to deal with the diaspora. Right? And why is that so critical? I know there's GUID at the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and I'll talk about that quickly. The diaspora, those of us who live abroad, represent more people living outside of Guyana than in Guyana. Documented and undocumented. We are now region 11 in the diaspora. So that if you wanted to really deal with us, you better get some representation because we represent more than any region in this country. So, countries that have been successful and effective have implemented policies through structured organization. You can't implement a policy if you don't have an organization and a background support to do it. So all the 26 countries, India, Philippines, Mexico, the whole combination, these countries have diaspora engagement institutions at various levels of government. The federal government, regional, local, that's where they have it. What do we have in Guyana? In 2012, the IOM, in conjunction with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, formed something called the Guyana Development Project that existed under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and still exists today. And that was in 2012. They went around to New York, Toronto, to launch the Guyana Diaspora Project. Great idea. Carlin Burkett, that's her name, was the Minister of Foreign Affairs at that point in time. So that's what Guyana started in about 2012. And I've done the study and research, and when you peruse the website, and you look at accomplishments, you look at stories of success, you will find nothing after 7 years. Absolutely nothing. Because there have been no policies in place, there's been no strategy in place, and there has been no implementation of what does not exist. So if we want to talk about challenges, that's the primary and the most important area that has to be fixed. Guyanese around the world work and assist in Guyana. They send money, barrels, the whole combination, without a structure. Imagine if we had a real structure like the Philippines, like Mexico, like Singapore, China, India, what we could possibly accomplish with the 1.2 estimated million Guyanese outside of Guyana. But the important thing as we talk about diaspora, we have to understand what it really means, the word diaspora. And everyone in the diaspora is not committed to assist in Guyana. Everyone in diaspora does not have an interest. And you know something? You're looking at a guilty party for about 29 years. For 29 years, when I lived in the US, before I started getting involved, I had no interest in Guyana because I had no relatives in Guyana. Nobody, no friends, nothing. And then something happened many years ago, about 8 years ago, and I became involved. So there are folks in diaspora who have nothing and no interest. So what they've defined diaspora as those who come from a foreign land and maintain ties with the foreign land, emotional ties. So when we talk about diaspora, it's important for us to lay the groundwork and the framework for what we're talking about. Not every Guyanese outside of Guyana is committed to helping Guyana or doing anything. Not every Guyanese outside of Guyana is skilled to offer services to Guyana. So these are important things that we need to understand. And getting back to GUID on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, until such time that we develop an organization which has the capacity to perform, to implement policies, and to utilize a strategy to engage members of the diaspora in the various ways that they can be engaged, we are just barking up the wrong tree and we're going in the wrong direction after 51 years of independence. So as this gentleman talked about structure and organization, that's the major challenge that we are facing in Guyana. And until such time that we develop an organization that is diaspora-centric, that is resourced properly, we will have a problem in engaging the diaspora effectively. My understanding with the GUID on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs over the past several years, there were 2 people. I don't know how many there are right now. There were 2. Now you tell me how 2 people in some organization can possibly deal with 200,000, 300 members of the diaspora without a policy and without a strategy, without clear strategic objectives and goals, without a mission or a vision. I'm done?
You got about a minute.
Genuine engagement phases. Particularly the diaspora and in the case of Guyana, the diaspora in the ABC countries, America, Britain, and Canada. We have seen in the past where the diaspora has been quite active in bringing about change of government. Jimmy Carter got involved in the 1992 elections in Guyana, largely at the behest of Guyanese in the diaspora. Aid to Guyana was cut off because of some fake letters that were written by people who claimed to be Guyanese to their Congress people, saying that Mr. Hoyt and Mr. Bonham and the PNC were the worst in sliced bread, and therefore you must cut aid to them. And that you
What's the
must
question? What's the question?
Okay, no. The question is, are governments really committed to working with the diaspora? Or they are committed to working with their party supporters in the diaspora?
Sorry, let me just answer this one.
Short, very, very short.
May 10th, 2015, President Granger, first sitting of the 11th Parliament, said, we are going to create policies for a huge diaspora. That was in 2015. And subsequent to that, we're still here talking about policy. Last year, February, the IOM conducted a survey, New York, Toronto, and different parts, to draft a strategy document, a diaspora engagement strategy document that was submitted to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the recommendation was that that document should be shared with us in the diaspora. It hasn't been done. So your question about seriousness is a powerful, powerful question. And I'm not going to draw a conclusion.
Let me answer it very quickly. As a matter of fact, I just understand that ministers are going to be chairing a session, and I think that question is for the minister. And this afternoon there's a session that I'm chairing with, was supposed to be with Mr. Green. He's not here, but somebody's representing him to speak about that document. So I think that question is more, it should be asked in those sessions.
I'm disturbed. I don't live in one of the worst corrupt countries in this hemisphere. I really don't. And people who say that annoy me because you're reading too much of cultural news. And perception of corruption index. When you do a survey, and you guys are academics and I'm not, but if you do a survey on corruption and you went to a particular biased part of the society, every time they see a big car and a house, they think it's corruption. They don't understand people are working hard at businesses. There's a lot of people coming back home from the diaspora and investing in Guyana, and they're living well, and when people see that, they think that's corruption. And so what is happening is, this is being fed into Transparency International Perception of Corruption Index. There's something called, if you come to Guyana and you speak to the formal private sector, you speak to the trade union, and you speak to people here, you will get a completely different perception. What is happening, they're going to one section of the population who have not done a survey that balances them. First thing I want to say to you. Second thing is, one of the reasons that we are having this perception issue, Jamaica is spending $100 million a year to market that bankrupt, crime-ridden country called Jamaica. But Jamaica is attracting 3 million tourists a year because the country is spending money to market and tell the world and counter the negatives. Negative news are free news. Every paper in the world pick up free negative news. Good news, you have to pay for it. In Guyana, forever, our governments don't get it. Our governments support ecotourism by echoing what they hear the private sector say. So they support ecotourism. Now they support ecotourism, not ecotourism. And the point I'm making, Vincent, very quickly, we market this country with $500,000. It's a joke. So when you go to the World Travel Market in London, and you see Barbados booth with $500 million of a booth, and then you see somebody sitting in a corner of the desk marketing Guyana, it does tremendous damage to our country. We are not telling the world what a beautiful country Guyana is. We are English speaking, we are in this continent. The next 10 years are going to be amazing for Guyana. We're not telling the country that, we're not telling the world. And so what is predominating us is the negative news. And you guys in the diaspora got to help us. Because we got to get the real facts before we start spreading the negative news that Guyana is one of the most corrupted countries in this hemisphere. It's not.
You need this? Or?
Yeah, I don't think I need the microphone. Real quick, regarding youth unemployment, this person, I think you made a very good presentation, but are you seeing a distinction between young people who are qualified but just can't find viable employment, as opposed to young people who just never got the most important fundamental elementary and primary education and therefore are not prepared for the job market?
Very quickly, in a minute they're kicking us out, so.
So according to the work that I have done, I have worked with at-risk youth for over 10 years, and I worked with workforce development programs. And so one of the things is that youth aren't provided the appropriate resources, and these are at-risk youth. So they don't have the resources, they don't have the skills, they don't have the talent to make them competitive in the workforce. And so that's one of the things that I've seen. As I worked in one of the worst areas in Washington, D.C., and I was considered as Southeast Washington, D.C., and the youth were coming there, they are not prepared. They have dropped out of school early, they don't have a high school diploma, and they have not continued their education. And that's because of all the dynamics that goes with along with poverty. And so one of the things is that we have a workforce development program. For an example, the workforce development program that I worked for was called Youth Build. And so it came with a component where the students were able to get a trade in construction, get licensed and certified, and then also get their high school diploma at the same time. And then they were actually taught life skills. And so they had a case manager, social worker, and then they were provided a stipend. So all of these things were resources that was put into place to help and make it accessible and easier for the students to get the skills they need to compete in the workforce. And so in the Washington, D.C. area right now, it's going through a major regentrification, and so construction is one of the up-and-coming, fields in the area where they provide quality work. Okay, so one last point. So the thing is for Guyana, when I listened to the conversations over the last day and a half and work with people, when you have all of these new resources in economical development, so you need engineering, IT, and all that other stuff, what are you all going to do to prepare your youth to be able to compete and to be able to work for like the oil companies and different things like that?
Thank you. Let me close here with, and I think Jerry made an excellent point that I've been preaching in every forum that I've been in. And like I said, I dwell and live more in the West, not in major metropolitan areas. And I walk into some supermarkets and I see cassava, frozen cassava coming from Jamaica and all the West Indies. I see commercials for tourism from St. Kitts and Dominica, and I've never seen anything again. I think we're doing only last night I was saying something. I think we're doing probably the poorest job in marketing this country. And I totally agree with Jerry. I think it ought to be one of the highest priority in sending out that positive message as to the value and what this country is about, so that you can attract people. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm sitting and when I see commercials from St. Kitts and every place else, and nobody ever should not have been hearing up in front again. It really bothers me, and I think we need to really put some focus on. And hopefully, people like Jerry in the private sector is going to help, push and peddle that type of message, because it's very, very important and urgent. Anyway, so thanks for your participation. And like I said, my understanding is that ministers are going to be here, and there's some questions, I'm sure, because it comes back to some of the presentations and structure and organization, which I think that they should do.